There is no Star Trek in production for the first time in over a decade.
Our prayers have been answered.
Yeah. So this is Trek Central, posts a lot of news. There is nothing. They'll wrap Starfleet Academy season 2 in February. No new Trek is in production. What does that mean for the franchise? I mean, is this a reset now? Are they going to sunset? And as you know, Rob, the film business, TV business, it's a freelance business. I mean, you know, you're Alex Kurtzman. I have a whole clip of him. We'll watch. He's a freelancer, right? And when you're done doing the work, you're out of work. You're unemployed.
Right. Clear, they're talking about TV because they are doing movies, but they're separate from everything.
Right. So what does this mean? Is this an opportunity for a reset? I even suggested on Critical Drinker, you should take over Star Trek, Rob.
Well, yeah, I appreciate that. But I think that the problem with the Star Trek franchise is it's not returning. They haven't built an audience. They've spent a ton of money on every episode of those shows. And they have virtually, does anybody even talk about, I mean, people talk about Strange New Worlds a little bit, but when was the last time somebody talked about Lower Decks or Star Trek Prodigy or even Discovery? I think these shows have left no pop culture footprint. And the reason being is they're not telling stories that are relevant. You know, Star Trek was a show that told action adventure, allegorical tales. And when it was originally written, it was the writers of the original Star Trek were novelists, they were playwrights, they were short story writers, they were screenwriters. You had some of the great literary fantasists of the mid-20th century writing for the show. These were true storytellers in every shape of what storytellers can be, and they could work. They could jump from writing a screenplay to writing novels to writing short stories. And the problem, I think, that with the people that are writing Star Trek now is they're just not experienced writers. I mean, they certainly aren't experienced in world building because they don't even have a rudimentary understanding of the distances in space. You know, it's such a weird. In the last episode, they had a villain encircle the Federation with these mines. And it's like, you're going to encircle the Federation. Do you have any understanding of how many mines you would need, even though the Omega particle could destroy a light year? I mean, if you think about 1 light year is the distance light travels for a year at 186,000 miles per second. That's a lot of space, and that's only 1 light year. So, you know, if the Federation is 100 light years across, that would take a very long way to travel and a lot of mines to encircle the Federation. When you see something like that, you're like, are these people stupid? Like, truly?
Yes.
Well, that's, and when a casual viewer watches this, or anybody with a cursory understanding, first of all, space isn't just flat. You know, it's 3-dimensional. So
they could just fly up or fly down.
Yeah, and it pans back to show it's spherical, but that goes to Robert's point of how the fuck did they replicate that so much and place them?
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about it would be impossible. And when you look at stuff like that, they don't care. And the objection I have to Starfleet Academy is, here you have an opportunity. Your show's called Starfleet Academy, yet we know nothing about Starfleet Academy. What's the curriculum? How can you judge your character's progress through a school if you have no idea what the school's teaching? There have been great shows and great movies about academia. And there's always really interesting conflicts. Students are in conflict with each other, with the administration, with their teachers, with what's expected of them. And whether you're watching something like Officer and a Gentleman, I mean, military shows where they have to go through the military academies. If you're watching like The Lords of Discipline, which is a movie, and if you're watching Officer and a Gentleman, there's great stories to be told in academic situations, but they don't want to do that. Like, why is Starfleet Academy involved with the big bad that's mining Federation space? Wouldn't that be Starfleet Command's problem? Why is the head of Starfleet Command always coming back to Starfleet Academy? It's such a weird, bizarre idea that, you could make. We've always wanted to see Starfleet Academy. There's a whole series of books written in the 90s about Starfleet Academy. We saw episodes from the first season of Next Generation to the 5th season's First Duty. I mean, show us that, or go back to some of the great, Dead Poets Society, great movie about school and what a great teacher can do to the lives of students. Or the Paper Chase or something. Go look up the Paper Chase, the Socratic Method. I tweeted it last night, where this very fearsome professor gets up and says, here's how we do things in school. We use the Socratic Method. I ask you questions and you answer so your brains don't turn to mush. I'm going to teach you critical thinking. But there's none of that in Starfleet Academy. What's it supposed to be? I don't even know.
So you're saying the facts of life has more depth?
Well, at least it has more understanding of, this speech is amazing, or not.
Amazingly horrible.
Well, no, but he says in this speech, he goes, Star Trek has always had a message. And I would say that the message of Star Trek, the optimistic message, is built into the show. It doesn't have to keep telling you what this message is. It shows you a future where humanity has prevailed, where already we understand that we're all humans from Earth and we've moved out into a spacefaring federation where people are getting married to aliens. You have intermarriages between aliens. So to get back and talk about our individual differences on Earth, whether we're gonna make them sexual, racial, whatever, is such a regression in what Star Trek showed us a future where all of that had already happened. We were already a tapestry where everybody was considered equal according, and each would excel according to their gifts. But this show, modern Star Trek, is all about these differences that we have that would have been surmounted 1,000 years from now. And he says, Alex Kurtzman says in this speech, Star Trek has always been about the message. Well, what message? What message are you giving us other than it's an optimistic vision of the future for mankind?
Let's take a look at this speech from the Saturn Awards. It's Alex Kurtzman getting an award for his work on Star Trek.
Gene Roddenberry had this lightning bolt of an idea, and I think he understood something fundamental about the nature of science fiction and genre storytelling, which is that science fiction is not really about the future, it's about now. It is the prism through which the looking glass, the magnifying glass through which we examine ourselves, the state of humanity, who we are, what we're capable of, and where we're going. And it was such a powerful idea that it has lasted for 60 years because each iteration of Star Trek has been interpreted and reinterpreted by people who are so inspired by the message of Star Trek. On set every day, for the last several years, I've had this ritual, which is I take 1 minute to look around at what's going on and the incredible army of people and artists doing this job. And you will not meet one person on any of our sets who doesn't love Star Trek in their core.
Nerds.
Doubt.
Wow. What do we think about that? And I gotta show you something here. One thing about Star Trek, it's always for the most part had good spelling, but there was a spelling error in the recent episode here. They misspelled imminent. They spelled it imminent. I don't know if you can see that. I'll zoom in a little bit more. Imminent is misspelled.
Oh, it is.
This turned up on
what a disaster this show is, man.
Yeah, it really has become painful to watch.
He might be right, but it's how we reflect it Like he might be right that it shows the modern world, but then it's what Robert is. It was always the hopefulness for the future. We had always had our shit sorted out. If you want someone that doesn't understand pronouns, you don't make the gay man on Discovery get lectured to about pronouns by the trans trill. You make another fucking alien civilization not understand it, and then you have them learn a lesson in the context of the episode. But you don't make the episode so someone can be lectured to about fucking pronouns. It cancels itself out.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because that would have been settled. Nobody would care. You know, it would be such a non-issue when you have human beings having sex with aliens from other planets. Doesn't matter whether it's Arcturian, baby.
Yeah. Yeah. Because they come across plenty of species that have more than one gender, or 1.5, like a genitor episode, or the ones where they're all represented like baseline, and then Riker, of course, brings out the feminine. But it was other species, because we'd had our stuff sorted out for a long time, and they just regressed it.
I'm still trying to figure out what science is the burn based on.
Yes.
Autism is the key to everything science, basically.
The dumbest thing ever.
Robert, you basically said meritocracy when you said everyone will shine according to their talents. They don't like that.
No, they will. I mean, that was, and that's what they even said in Star Trek 2. You know, you have a boatload of children, each will perform according to their gifts. I mean, that's the whole idea and why is meritocracy? The thing is, Star Trek used to be about the top 1%. They're the only people that could be trusted enough to be out on the final frontier. That was the whole point. And there's a great episode of the first season of Next Generation called Coming of Age, where Wesley is being tested to see as to whether or not he can get into Starfleet Academy. And he actually fails. He doesn't get in. And that was, I mean, I would say great episode as far as season 1 is concerned. But I think that this show is all about how everybody's special.
Right.
And I think that's a terrible, terrible thing to say, because what you're doing is you're taking the onus off people to be excellent, to be the best they can be.
If everyone is special, then no one is special.
Well, you can't. I mean, on the final frontier, if you make a mistake, a shipload of people die. And we have this weird, there's this weird aversion to being great at your job, or to being great at that. We seem to
excellence, the idea of excellence.
Yeah, which is insane. They want to get rid of gifted children programs in New York City. Why would you want to do that? Why wouldn't you want to encourage the best of us to be even better?
This is the participation. This is the participation trophy generation, where everybody gets a hug, everybody gets a trophy, everybody's special. You know, that's the problem. Is these are the people that are writing Star Trek. Apparently, you know, they want everyone to feel warm and fuzzy and good about themselves, and not strive to be better. It's like, okay, maybe you have a little talent. You need to hone it. You need to work on it. You need to master it. And then you need to rise through the ranks. But no. It feels like this is just some left socialist gobbledygook that everybody gets a hug and everybody's special. And that's it. That's what this
It's She-Hulk. Like. It's Ray. You were perfect all along. You only had to realize it. But they don't understand the Star Trek universe. They think it's just like some socialist wet dream. It's not. The form of like money has changed. And so everyone has their basic needs met. And the only thing that matters in that society is what have you, now that all that's taken care of, what have you done with your life? So there's this whole social thing of just bettering yourself, constantly bettering yourself and being the best possible you. And for some, that means going out into the stars and meeting new boldly going but they don't want any of that. They don't want any of that. They just want to reflect this and their politics, and it ruins everything.
Yeah, because they don't feel that hug. They want that hug. That's the problem.
Earn that hug.
Yeah. The problem is not everyone can barf glitter. And
yeah. But I mean, I think
and also they don't want to better themselves, you know?
Yeah.
They don't want to better themselves. So because
like
they don't want to better themselves, they're not going to write anything like that.
And the thing is, we're going to meet aliens that exceed humanity in every way. And yet we still want to be able to coexist and function with those kinds of people and learn from them. And I feel like what modern Star Trek has made a bunch of characters that are insubordinate, that don't follow the chain of command, that they place the individual above the group in terms of when you're on a ship and you're working. If you fail to do your job, people die. And that's something that I think is admirable. You know, anyone who's served in the military understands that the chain of command is vital. And part of what Star Trek is, it shows us basically a space navy. And the last thing you want, I don't find insubordination, you know, a character of like Beckett Mariner on Lower Decks, the animated show. She was very insubordinate. And it didn't make any sense to me that how are you showing an insubordinate character on board a starship? You know, that's not what Star Trek is. You know, Star Trek is great because you have a crew of 400 people on the Enterprise that all are the best of the best. Whether you're in xenobiology or engineering or whatever, you were the best of the best. That's why you're on that ship. And that's why it was such an honor to be there. And it represented the best of humanity that humanity had to offer.
Even how they deal with their differences. I hate the constant modern dialogue and swearing and petulant. Like, I think the best example ever is this is also used as how two men, or just really two people, but how two bros should talk to each other. It's the one where Data is put in charge and Worf sasses off to him and he pulls him aside and just boop, 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 boop. Do you have a problem following my orders? No? Get back out there. And it's perfect. They could never write something like that.
And then beyond that, in that scene, Worf says, I'm sorry that if I have damaged our friendship. And Data turns around and says, you have not. You know, I hope to continue to call.
I got chills just when you said that. Yeah.
I mean, and that's mature adult behavior. And that is something that you see immature, infantile behavior on these shows.
And it seems that, you know, it was rare in the old Trek, any old Trek, that people would not follow protocol or would go rogue, or it was like a rare episode and it was treated very seriously. Like if you broke, you know, the command, you know,
or it was
hierarchy.
Like Ensign Rowe or whatever. That was her whole thing, right? She
that was that was a great character.
Right. But it was specific to B because that's a very rare thing. And yet they don't give up on people.
Yeah. Well, it's
that's right.
I mean, it seems like every episode of Starfleet Academy, they're breaking the rules. And this latest episode, they steal a shuttle. They can die. Within 2 minutes, Sam figures out how Caleb can find messages from his mother.
Did you notice the sexism? There's some rampant sexism when they're captured. The students are captured by the Valar Rai, whatever, the group that was annexing Ukek, and she is questioning Genesis, and Genesis mouths off, and instead of punching Genesis, she tells her male lackey to punch Darim in the face, and he takes the beating for her. Where's the? I don't get it. Where's the uniformity here?
Yeah.
You're suggesting that men are stronger than women, and that's why he took the beating instead? That's I don't like that message.
Well, I believe a lot of why modern TV is not very good is because all the episodes are done before the audience sees it. Meaning you've cut the audience loop, the audience feedback loop. They're making the show for themselves, not for an audience. And the way old television worked when Friends was around, or Seinfeld, or Star Trek The Next Generation, you'd begin airing the series while you're still making episodes because seasons were so long. What you got was, even with, I remember my dad and I looking at message boards about Twin Peaks with theories. The creators of shows had a feedback loop. This is before social media. They got feedback in terms of ratings, which you live or die based on ratings.
Yeah.
And they got feedback from the audience, and it made TV shows better. Yeah. It made Star Trek better. Yes, that first season, there was a big thread on social media about, well, the first season of Next Gen. I remember really liking the characters, Data and Riker's first interaction in Encounter at Farpoint.
Yep.
When he makes a reference to Pinocchio, you know, about Data, and they form this friendship. The crew's meeting for the first time. McCoy, an older McCoy, you know, is sending them off a new Enterprise. You know, it was exciting. It was not perfect. It was rough. I didn't like the uniforms in season 1. They fixed the
onesies.
You didn't like the scant?
They looked like they were wearing pajamas. Anyways,
but fortunately, Alex Kurtzman has all his input before he goes into season 2.
But this is what, that's my point. My point is, modern creators are cutting out the audience. They are dictating these stories, not getting feedback. And minor characters in Trek would be, well, this was a minor character, like what's that guy's name? Barkley or
Reginald Barkley.
Yeah, like he was a small character. Well, then he comes back. You bring characters that character was popular.
The savior of Voyager.
Yes, like certain things, like the feedback loop of the audience doesn't exist in modern entertainment now, modern TV, which is streaming, and it's killing these shows. It's killing what they could be. And to make 2 seasons of a show, not let the audience have their voice, and then to vilify the voices. So someone like Robert Meyer Burnett, who did the amazing the Blu-rays, what you've done for Trek, I don't think people appreciate or understand.
Well, you can't really, the only way to see what we did was if you bought the Blu-rays, unfortunately. Right. I mean, what's interesting, I always get pushback, but I spent 3 years of my life interviewing virtually everybody that was involved that I could still talk to who created Next Generation. Why did you the entire, we have a writing staff roundtable, and we did so much work, and I did so many interviews with people, and it was really interesting to hear, but it was a very different time as well. And they were making 26 episodes a season.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And for Next Generation, the interesting thing about it is, like you pointed out, the pushback was from fans that didn't want something new. They weren't pushing back on it necessarily because the show was terrible. And in many cases, the first season was, but there was still the big goodbye, the big first holodeck episode in Next Generation won a Peabody Award for excellence in broadcasting. The one with Lawrence Tierney as Cyrus Redblock. They were
complaining because it wasn't Kirk.
Picard's dressed up as Dixon Hill. That's a great episode of Star Trek.
I made a movie with Lawrence Tierney called Red. That's going to be out on Blu-ray. I've got the old DVD here. It's coming out, but Lawrence Tierney, I have Lawrence Tierney stories. Anyways, but that I remember it was Next Gen was very different from the original series. In many ways, Picard was not a man of action. That was Riker's role. He was the older, figure that was more a politician, diplomat, and that was probably how it would really be. I remember reading interviews with Gene Roddenberry saying, you're not taking the captain and putting him in harm's way. Someone else goes in his stead. And that was Riker's role. It was, in many ways, Next Gen was more thoughtful than the original series.
And to talk about, they had a counselor on the bridge because they figured if people had mental health issues or they needed to have somebody to talk to, that was very much an 80s thing, but it also made sense.
Yes.
And, that was something that Next Generation added that was definitely a sign of the times, but it made sense to the reality of the show.
She's a betazoid. It's hot. It all helped.
Yeah. Well, look, I just wonder if current day Hollywood can make modern Trek and make it in a way that actually gets ratings, moves the needle, and is culturally significant.
Is there anything from this current era of Trek that's redeemable or salvageable that you could keep? Because you guys I stepped away for a second and you said there was no new Trek in production and maybe they're, rebooting. Is there anything you can salvage or keep from the current era of Trek, or is it all pretty much just get rid of it?
It's the Orville.
The Orville is great. The Orville's great.
Derek, because the honest answer is, like, if we say, like, well, Picard season 3 was good, and maybe if they did Star Trek Legacy from Terry Matalas, it's still based on a bunch of shit by people that we don't like.